The crimson sun hung low over the shattered remains of New Terra, casting long shadows across the scorched earth where humanity's greatest cities once stood. In the distance, the skeletal remains of skyscrapers clawed at the blood-red sky like the fingers of dying giants. The air tasted of ash and defeat. Commander Elena Vasquez pressed her weathered palm against the reinforced glass of the observation deck, watching the horizon with eyes that had seen too much. At 38, she looked a decade older, her black hair streaked with premature silver, her face etched with lines of command and loss. Behind her, the last outpost, humanity's final stronghold, hung with desperate activity. "Still nothing on the long-range scanners, Commander," reported Lieutenant Marcus Chen, his voice carrying the weight of exhaustion that had become their constant companion. The young man's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the controls, though whether from fatigue or fear, Elena couldn't tell. Perhaps both. "They're out there," she murmured, her breath fogging the glass. "The hegemony doesn't give up. They never give up." 3 months had passed since the fall, the day when Earth's orbital defenses crumbled like paper before the alien fleet. The hegemony had come without warning, without demands, without mercy. Their ships, vast geometric nightmares that defied human understanding of physics, had torn through humanity's space forces in hours. The ground invasion that followed was swift, clinical, and absolute. Only this outpost remained, carved into the living rock of Mount Defiance, a name that had seemed almost prophetic when they'd chosen it 2 years ago. Now it felt like a cruel joke. What defiance could 800 souls offer against an enemy that had conquered 100 worlds? Dr. Sarah Kim looked up from her research station, pushing her wire-rimmed glasses up her nose, a nervous habit that had intensified since the siege began. "Elena, I need to show you something. The energy readings from the alien installations, they're changing." Elena turned from the window, grateful for any distraction from the view of their dying world. Sarah's laboratory occupied the deepest level of the outpost, surrounded by layers of rock and reinforced steel that had once seemed like overkill. Now they felt pitifully thin. "Show me," Elena said, moving to peer over Sarah's shoulder at the holographic display. The physicist's fingers danced across the controls, bringing up a 3-dimensional map of the surrounding area. Red dots marked the locations of hegemony installations, fusion plants, processing centers, and the massive spires that seemed to serve as their command posts. "Here," Sarah pointed to the largest spire, a twisted tower of alien metal that rose from what had once been the city of New Geneva. "For weeks, it's been emitting a steady pulse. We thought it was communications. But in the last 48 hours, the frequency has been increasing exponentially." Elena studied the data, her stomach knotting with dread. "What does that mean?" "I think—" Sarah hesitated, removing her glasses to clean them with shaking hands. "I think they're preparing for something big. The energy signature matches theoretical models for planetary-scale weapons. If I'm right, they're not just planning to kill the rest of us. They're going to sterilize the entire planet." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Elena felt the familiar weight of command pressing down on her shoulders, 800 lives looking to her for answers she didn't have, for hope she couldn't give. A sharp alarm cut through the silence. Red lights bathed in the laboratory in hellish illumination. Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over the comm system. "Commander to the bridge. We've got incoming." Elena ran through the corridors of the outpost, her boots echoing against metal floors worn smooth by desperate feet. The bridge was chaos, technicians shouting readings, officers barking orders, and above it all the steady beep of proximity alarms that meant death was approaching. "Report," Elena commanded as she burst onto the bridge. "Hegemony Patrol, 3 scout ships moving fast on Vector 207. They'll be in visual range in 4 minutes." Elena's mind raced. The outpost's camouflage had held for 3 months, hidden among the natural rock formations and powered by geothermal taps that produced minimal heat signatures. If they were discovered now, Weapon status. 2 railguns operational, but Commander, if we fire, every hegemony ship within 100 kilometers will know we're here. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of an impossible choice. Find and reveal their position to the entire alien fleet, or hide and pray the scouts didn't look too closely. Neither option offered much hope. Ma'am? Chen's voice was tight with tension. Before Elena could answer, the lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in dim red light. Over the comm system, Sarah's voice crackled with urgent excitement. Elena! Something's happening at the spire! The energy output just spiked beyond anything I've recorded. Through the bridge's viewports, they could see it. A pillar of sickly green light erupting from the alien tower, reaching toward the sky like a diseased finger. The light pulsed with a rhythm that made Elena's teeth ache, and she could swear she felt it in her bones. My God, whispered Chen. What is that thing? Elena didn't answer. She couldn't, because deep in her gut, she knew exactly what they were looking at. The weapon Sarah had theorized about, it was real, and it was charging. On the tactical display, the 3 hegemony scouts had stopped their advance, hovering in place as if they too were transfixed by the alien lighthouse. But Elena knew this reprieve wouldn't last. Soon they would resume their patrol, and when they did, the last outpost would face its final test. She straightened her shoulders and turned to face her crew. Young faces marked by war. Old souls trapped in bodies too young for the burdens they carried. These were the last free humans in the galaxy, and she was responsible for every one of them. All hands, this is the commander, she announced over the ship-wide comm. I won't lie to you about what we're facing. The enemy has a weapon capable of destroying our entire world, and their scouts are closing in on our position. In the next few hours, we may face our greatest challenge yet. She paused, looking at each face on the bridge, Chen with his determined jaw, Sarah still clutching her data pad like a lifeline, Chief Engineer Rodriguez monitoring power levels with the intensity of a man holding back the tide. But I want you to remember something, Elena continued, her voice growing stronger. We are the inheritors of 10,000 years of human courage, human ingenuity, human refusal to surrender. Our ancestors climbed down from the trees, crossed oceans, reached for the stars. They faced plagues and famines, tyrants and disasters, and they never gave up. That legacy lives in us. The green light from the alien spire pulsed brighter, and Elena could feel it pressing against her mind like a living thing. Today, we make our stand. Not just for ourselves, but for every human who ever dared to dream of freedom. And if we fall, we'll make sure the galaxy remembers that humans were here and that we fought. The comm fell silent except for the steady beeping of alarms. Outside, the 3 scout ships began moving again, their sleek forms cutting through the ash-filled sky like sharks sensing blood in the water. Elena turned back to the tactical display, her mind already racing through possibilities. They had perhaps an hour before the scouts reached their position. 1 hour to devise a plan that could somehow save 800 lives and stop a weapon that could kill an entire world. Chen, I want every available person in the war room in 10 minutes. Sarah, bring everything you have on that spire. As her officers scattered to carry out her orders, Elena remained on the bridge, staring out at the alien light that promised death to her world. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a desperate plan was beginning to form, suicidal, impossible, and perhaps their only hope. The last outpost had earned its name through 3 months of hiding and surviving. Now it was time to discover if it could live up to the other half of its legacy, the part about defiance. #Hack2, a fight for more than just survival of the war room, fell silent as Elena finished outlining her plan. Around the reinforced table, the faces of humanity's last leaders reflected a mixture of hope and horror. The holographic display showed the alien spire in all its malevolent glory, its green energy output climbing toward critical levels. "You're talking about suicide," said Captain Jake Morrison, commander of the outpost ground forces. His scarred face bore witness to the battles he'd fought during the retreat to Mount Defiance. "Even if we could reach the spire, we don't have the firepower to destroy something that massive." "We don't need to destroy it," Sarah interjected, leaning forward over her datapad. "Elena's right. If we can disrupt the harmonic frequency at the base of the structure, the energy feedback should cause a cascade failure." Chief Rodriguez shook his grizzled head. "That's assuming we can get past whatever defenses they have. The hegemony didn't leave their super weapon unguarded." Elena studied the faces around the table, 8 men and women who had volunteered to carry the weight of humanity's survival. Each of them had lost everything: families, friends, entire worlds consumed by the hegemonies. Yet here they sat, still fighting, still hoping. "I know what I'm asking," Elena said quietly. "A frontal assault on a heavily defended position with no backup and no retreat. But Sarah's calculations show that weapon will be ready to fire in 18 hours. When it does, everything on this planet dies. Not just us, but every living thing down to the bacteria in the soil." Lieutenant Chen raised his hand hesitantly. "Commander, what about evacuation?" "The long-range shuttle could carry maybe 50 people." "To where, Marcus?" Elena's voice was gentle but firm. "This is the last free world in human space. Everywhere else is either dead or under hegemony control. We run now, and we're just postponing the inevitable." Dr. Kim pulled up another display showing energy patterns from across the galaxy. "Elena's right. I've been monitoring signals from other conquered worlds. The hegemony doesn't just defeat their enemies, they erase them. Every planet they've taken shows the same pattern: invasion, subjugation, then complete sterilization of all native life forms." The room erupted in angry voices, arguments about duty and sacrifice, about the impossibility of success and the certainty of failure. Elena let them vent for a moment, understanding their need to voice their fears. These people had already given everything for humanity's cause. She was asking them to give more. The voice that cut through the chaos belonged to Sergeant Major Patricia Williams, the oldest person in the outpost at 62. Her hair was completely white, but her blue eyes burned with undiminished fire. "I've listened to you all argue about what we can't do, what we shouldn't do. Let me tell you what we're going to do." She stood slowly, her movements deliberate despite the arthritis that Elena knew plagued her joints. "I was at the Battle of Kepler Station. 30,000 hegemony ships against our fleet of 800. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and everyone said we couldn't win. You know what we did. We fought anyway. And yes, we lost the battle. But we bought 3 days for the civilian evacuation ships to escape." Williams walked to the holographic display, her weathered hand passing through the image of the alien spire. "This is different. This time, we're not buying time for someone else to run. We're fighting for the right of humanity to exist in this universe. And that, people, is worth dying for." The room fell silent again, but this time it was the silence of resolve rather than despair. Elena felt a surge of gratitude for the old soldier who had found the word she couldn't. "The sergeant major is right," Elena said. "This isn't just about the 800 people in this outpost. It's about every human who ever lived, who ever dreamed, who ever looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. We are their legacy, and we will not let that legacy end in alien slavery." Captain Morrison cleared his throat. "What do you need from us, Commander?" Elena activated the tactical display, showing the routes from the outpost to the alien spire. "Jake, I need your ground forces to create a diversion here." She pointed to a hegemony processing plant about 5 kilometers from the spire. "Draw as many defenders away as possible. Consider it done. We've been wanting to hit that facility anyway." "Rodriguez, how long would it take to rig the outpost fusion reactor for overload?" The chief engineer's eyes widened. You want to turn our home into a bomb? If we fail at the Spire, we can't let the hegemony capture our technology. How long? Rodriguez calculated quickly. 4 hours for a clean setup. But Commander, the blast radius would extend for kilometers. Anyone still in the area would die knowing they took some of the bastards with them, Williams finished grimly. Elena turned to Sarah. Doctor, I need you to prepare a focused EMP device, something we can get close to the Spire's base. If you're right about the harmonic frequency, even a small disruption should trigger the cascade. Sarah nodded, her mind already working through the technical challenges. I'll need access to the quantum processors from the communication array. And Elena, someone has to manually trigger the device. The interference from the Spire means we can't detonate it remotely. The implication hung heavy in the air. Whoever carried the device to the Spire would be on a one-way mission. I'll take it, Chen said immediately. No, Elena replied. This is my plan, my responsibility. With respect, Commander, Williams interrupted. The mission needs you to coordinate the assault. I'll carry the device. A chorus of protests erupted around the table, but Williams raised her hand for silence. I'm the oldest one here, the slowest, and probably the most stubborn. If anyone can get close enough to that alien nightmare, it's me. Besides, she smiled with gallows humor, I've been looking for a good way to retire. Elena felt tears threaten her eyes, but forced them back. Command meant making the hard choices, even when they tore your heart out. Are you sure, Patricia? The planning session continued for another hour, hammering out details and contingencies. As her officers dispersed to prepare their units, Elena found herself alone with Sarah in the war room. Do you really think this will work? Elena asked quietly. Sarah removed her glasses and rubbed her tired eyes. Honestly, the physics are sound, but there are so many variables. Elena, what if I'm wrong about the weapon? What if it's not what I think it is? Elena placed a comforting hand on her friend's shoulder. Then 800 people will die fighting instead of cowering. Sometimes that's the best choice we have. Through the outpost corridors, word of the mission spread quickly. There were no grand speeches, no dramatic rallying cries. Instead, there was quiet determination. Soldiers checking weapons, engineers rigging explosive charges, medics preparing field kits for wounds they knew might never be treated. Elena made her rounds, speaking briefly with each team leader, offering what encouragement she could. In the hydroponics bay, she found Corporal Emma Rodriguez, the chief's daughter, tending to the last green plants that would ever grow on New Terra. Leave them, Elena said gently. We need everyone on combat assignment. Emma looked up with her father's dark eyes but her mother's stubborn expression. Someone should stay with them, Commander. When we don't come back, these plants will die anyway. But for a few hours, they'll still be growing, still be alive. Elena nodded, understanding the symbolism. Life continuing in the face of extinction, growth persisting despite the certainty of death. It was perhaps the most human thing of all. In the armory, she found Williams methodically cleaning an ancient projectile rifle, a weapon that had belonged to her grandfather during Earth's civil wars. The sergeant major looked up as Elena approached. Some people think it's old-fashioned, Williams said, running an oil-stained rag along the barrel. All these energy weapons and smart rounds, and here I am with something that fires chunks of metal. But you know what? This rifle killed tyrants on Earth, fought off pirates in the asteroid belt, and held the line at Kepler Station. It's got history, Commander. Legacy. Elena sat down beside the older woman, watching her practice movements. Patricia, about the mission. Don't. William's voice was firm, but not unkind. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I've got grandchildren I'll never see again, buried on worlds that don't exist anymore. This is my chance to make their deaths mean something. The two women sat in comfortable silence for a moment, surrounded by the tools of war that had failed to save their civilization but might yet preserve their dignity. "You know what the funny thing is?" Williams continued, setting down the rifle. "When I was young, I used to dream about first contact with aliens. I thought it would be this wonderful moment, sharing knowledge, learning about the universe together. Never imagined they'd be genocidal monsters." "Maybe they're not all like the hegemony," Elena suggested. "Maybe somewhere out there." "Maybe," Williams agreed. "But we'll never know unless someone stands up to these bastards, shows the galaxy that humans don't go quietly into the night." A soft chime from Elena's comm unit interrupted their conversation. "Commander to the bridge," Dame Jen's voice. "The alien scouts are moving again. Either to our position 6 hours." Elena stood, feeling the weight of command settle back onto her shoulders. Around her, the outpost hummed with preparation, 800 people getting ready to throw their lives away in a desperate gamble for the future of their species. "It's time," she announced over the comm system. "All team leaders to the launch bay. Operation Last Stand is a go." As she walked toward the launch bay, Elena passed the memorial wall, a section of corridor covered with photos of the dead. Thousands of faces looked back at her. Soldiers, civilians, children who would never grow up. Each one a life cut short by the hegemony's advance, each one a reason to fight. At the end of the wall hung a simple plaque with words from humanity's ancient past. "We few, we happy few, we band of brothers." Below it, someone had added in fresh ink, "and sisters." Elena smiled despite everything. Even facing extinction, humans found ways to argue, to joke, to remind each other of their shared dignity. It was that spirit, that impossible, irrational, beautiful stubbornness that she was fighting to preserve. The launch bay doors opened with a mechanical groan, revealing the assault vehicles that would carry them to their destiny. Ancient transport ships pressed into military service, armed with whatever weapons they could mount, crewed by people who had volunteered for a mission with no hope of return. Elena took her position at the command console, looking out at the faces of her people, her family, really bound together by loss and hope in equal measure. In a few hours, most of them would be dead, but they would die as humans, free, defiant, and unbroken. "Mount up," she commanded. "Time to show the galaxy what humanity is made of." The assault convoy moved through the wasteland like ghosts, their vehicle's engines muffled by Chief Rodriguez's modifications. Elena crouched in the lead transport with Williams and Jen, watching the alien spire grow larger through the armored viewport. The green energy emanating from its peak had intensified, casting sickly shadows across the devastated landscape. "2 clicks of the target," reported Corporal Hayes from the driver's seat. His young voice couldn't quite hide the tremor of fear. Still no sign of patrol activity. Elena frowned. After 3 months of constant hegemony presence, the sudden absence of scouts felt wrong. Through her earpiece, she could hear Captain Morrison's team engaging the processing plant, explosions and weapons fire that should have drawn every enemy unit in the area. "Something's not right," she muttered, then keyed her calm. "Sarah, what's the energy output looking like?" Dr. Kim's voice crackled with static and excitement. "Elena, it's incredible. The readings are off the charts, but not in the way I expected. The harmonic frequency is destabilizing on its own. It's like the weapon is fighting against itself. It's like the weapon is fighting against itself." Williams looked up from checking her rifle for the 100th time. "Could be a trap. The bastards might be luring us in. Or," Chen suggested, studying his tactical display, "they're having technical difficulties. Even alien technology might have bugs." Elena made a command decision. "All units proceed with caution but maintain schedule. If this is our chance, we take it." The convoy crested a low ridge, and the full scope of the alien installation came into view. The spire dominated the landscape, a twisted tower of black metal and pulsing organic components that hurt to look at directly. Around its base, smaller structures formed concentric rings, connected by elevated walkways that defied human understanding of engineering. But it was what wasn't there that caught Elena's attention. The usual complement of hegemony guards was nowhere to be seen. No patrol craft circling the perimeter, no defensive positions, no sign of the overwhelming force that had conquered their world. "This is definitely a trap," Williams said flatly. "Question is, do we spring it anyway?" Elena studied the installation through her scope, noting the subtle details that spoke of alien design philosophy. The hegemony built for efficiency and intimidation, not beauty. Every line and angle served a purpose, usually violent. But here, something was different. The organic components pulsed with distress patterns, and several of the smaller structures showed signs of damage. "Sir, I need you to run a deep scan on the installation. Look for anything unusual, power fluctuations, structural damage, anything that might explain why it's undefended." While they waited for the results, Elena's mind raced through tactical possibilities. Her original plan had assumed fierce resistance, requiring Morrison's diversion to draw away defenders. With no visible guards, they might be able to approach the spire directly, but at what cost? "Commander," Sarah's voice was breathless with discovery, "I found something incredible. The installation isn't just malfunctioning, it's being sabotaged. From the inside." Elena's blood ran cold. "Sabotaged by whom? Are there other humans?" "No, Elena. The interference patterns are artificial, but they're not human. Someone else is fighting the hegemony." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. They weren't alone. Somewhere in that alien installation, another intelligence was working to stop the weapon, an intelligence that understood hegemony technology well enough to disrupt it. "Could be a rival alien faction," Chen suggested. "Maybe the hegemony has enemies we don't know about." Williams hefted her rifle grimly. "Friend or enemy, they're inside our target. We go in, we might catch them in crossfire." Elena weighed their options quickly. The energy readings Sarah had shown indicated mere hours before the weapon fired. Whatever was happening inside the spire, it was their only chance to stop the destruction of their world. "All units, new plan," she announced. "We're going in fast and quiet. Primary objective remains the same. Get Sarah's EMP device to the spire's base. Secondary objective, identify and assist whoever's fighting the hegemony inside." The assault vehicles crept forward through the ruins of what had once been a thriving suburb. Alien architecture rose around them. The hegemony had built their installation directly over the remains of New Geneva, incorporating human structures into their twisted design. Elena could see fragments of familiar buildings, a school where children had once played, a hospital where she'd volunteered during her academy days, a cathedral whose bells would never ring again. "Contact!" Hayes' voice cut through her reverie. "Hegemony drones, bearing 270. Through the viewport, Elena saw them, sleek mechanical hunters rising from concealed positions like metal insects. Their weapons charged with the characteristic whine of hegemony energy systems. "All units engage," Elena commanded. "Drive through. Don't stop." The convoy erupted in motion. Weapons fire lit up the gray afternoon as human projectiles met alien energy beams. The modified transport vehicles had been armored with salvaged materials, but Elena knew they couldn't withstand a prolonged fight. Hayes swerved around the crater just as an energy beam scorched the ground where they'd been moments before. Behind them, Elena could see one of the other transports taking hits, its armor plating glowing cherry red under the alien assault. "Transport 3 is hit," came the report over the comm. "Engines failing. We're going to have to." The transport exploded in a ball of fire and twisted metal, taking 12 volunteers with it. Elena forced down her grief. There would be time to mourn later if they survived. "Push through," she ordered. "Don't let their sacrifice be for nothing." The surviving vehicles burst through the drone perimeter, their guns still blazing. The base of the spire loomed ahead, a massive structure that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. Up close, Elena could see that Sarah had been right about the sabotage. Scorch marks and structural damage marred the alien construction, and several of the organic components hung limp and lifeless. "Deploy!" Elena commanded as their transport skidded to a halt. The assault team poured out, weapons ready, expecting immediate attack. Instead, they found themselves in an alien garden of sorts. Twisted sculptures that might have been art or might have been torture devices connected by pathways of some material that felt disturbingly warm underfoot. Movement, Williams reported, her rifle trained on the spire's entrance. Something big coming this way. The entrance dilated like an eye, and something emerged that made Elena's breath catch in her throat. It was humanoid, but wrong. Too tall, too thin, with elongated limbs that ended in delicate six-fingered hands. Its skin had the translucent quality of deep-sea creatures, and when it turned its head toward them, Elena saw eyes like pools of liquid starlight. "Hold fire!" she commanded, though every instinct screamed at her to attack. The creature's posture suggested exhaustion rather than aggression, and as it moved closer, she could see wounds that leaked a phosphorescent fluid. The alien spoke, and though the sounds were nothing like human language, Elena's translation implant, a piece of salvaged hegemony technology, rendered the words in accented but understandable English. "You are the indigenous species, the ones who resist." Elena stepped forward carefully, her weapon lowered, but ready. "Who are you? Are you the one sabotaging the weapon?" The creature made a sound that might have been laughter or despair. "I am Zephyr, of distant winds, of the people you would call ethereals. We were the first to fall to the hegemony long before your species reached the stars. I am perhaps the last of my kind." Chen moved up beside Elena, his scanner painting the alien with targeting data. "Commander, it's telling the truth about being wounded. Whatever did that to it, it wasn't friendly." "The hegemony tolerates no dissent," Zephyr continued, its luminous blood pooling at its feet, "even among their servants. When they discovered my sabotage, they corrected me, but not before I could damage their weapon's primary focusing array." Elena felt a surge of hope mixed with desperate urgency. "Can you stop it? Can you prevent the weapon from firing?" "Not stop. Only delay. The damage I cause will hold for perhaps 1 hour more. After that," the alien's shoulders sagged with defeat, "after that, your world dies, and I would have failed my people as I failed myself." William stepped forward, her rifle slung across her back. "Maybe you haven't failed yet. We've got a plan to destroy this thing, but we need to get to the base of the spire. Can you help us?" Zephyr's star-bright eyes studied the grizzled sergeant major with something approaching hope. "The internal defenses are still active. Many guardians remain. But yes, I know the path." "Why do you fight when defeat is certain?" "Because that's what humans do," Elena said simply. "We fight impossible odds, we refuse to surrender, and sometimes, just sometimes, we win." The alien nodded slowly. "Then perhaps there is hope after all. Come. I will guide you, though I warn you, the path leads through the heart of their stronghold. We will face horrors beyond your imagination." "We've been doing that for 3 months," Chen replied grimly. "What's a few more?" As they prepared to enter the spire, Elena caught a glimpse of the alien weapon's focusing array through a gap in the structure's organic walls. The sight made her stomach clench with primal fear. It was like looking into the eye of a malevolent god, a sphere of concentrated hatred that seemed to drink in light itself. "Sarah," she called over the comm, "how long until the EMP device is ready?" 40 minutes for final calibration, Commander." "But Elena, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations from your position. Whatever's happening in there, it's accelerating the weapon's charge cycle. Elena looked at her team, 23 humans and 1 alien, all that stood between their world and oblivion. Williams caught her eye and nodded grimly. Chen checked his weapon one last time. The others made their own quiet preparations for what might be their final hour. Then we better move fast, Elena said. Zephyr, lead the way. The interior of the spire was a nightmare of organic machinery and alien architecture. Walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins, and the air was thick with a cloying sweetness that made Elena's skin crawl. Worse were the sounds, whispers, and languages that had been old when humanity was young, harmonics that seemed designed to induce madness in carbon-based minds. Zephyr moved through the maze with surprising grace despite its wounds, leading them along pathways that curved and twisted in defiance of Euclidean geometry. The hegemony's technology is part machine, part living organism, it explained in hushed tones. They grow their weapons as much as build them. This makes them unpredictable, but also vulnerable to the right kind of disruption. They encountered their first guardian at a junction where 5 corridors met. It was a thing of metal and flesh, spider-like but wrong, with too many eyes and weapons that shifted and reconfigured as they watched. Williams put 3 round center mass before Elena could even raise her weapon, the alien creature collapsing in a heap of sparking circuits and bleeding meat. Nice shooting, Chen commented. Had plenty of practice, Williams replied, reloading with practiced efficiency. They pressed deeper, encountering more guardians but also something else, evidence of Zephyr's rebellion. Damaged systems sparked uselessly, organic components had been severed with surgical precision, and several critical junctions showed signs of deliberate sabotage. You've been busy, Elena observed as they paused at a viewing portal that showed the weapon's core chamber. Months of preparation, Zephyr confirmed. I convinced the hegemony that I had accepted their dominion, gained access to their most secure facilities. But I was always planning for this moment, the chance to strike back. The core chamber was a vast sphere lined with what looked like a cross between technology and anatomy. At its center, the focusing array hung like a malevolent star, building energy for the shot that would end all life on New Terra. Around it, hegemony technicians, beings that Elena couldn't identify, but that radiated cold intelligence, tended to incomprehensible controls. 12 technicians plus automated defenses, Chen reported. Sarah's device will have to be placed right next to that central ray. Elena studied the chamber's layout, noting the walkways and support structures that could provide cover. It was going to be a difficult assault, made worse by the fact that they couldn't afford to damage the delicate equipment they were trying to destroy. Patricia, she said quietly, are you ready for this? Williams shouldered the pack containing Sarah's EMP device, its weight giving her a slight lift to port. Born ready, Commander. Just make sure you give me enough covering fire to reach that thing. Elena divided her team into 3 groups, one to create a diversion at the main entrance, one to cover Williams' approach, and one to secure their escape route. It was a desperate plan with too many variables and not enough firepower, but it was all they had. Remember, she told them as they prepared to breach the chamber, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who ever lived, and every human who might live if we succeed. Make them count. The attack began with Williams' ancient rifle speaking first, its projectile punching through alien flesh and circuit. The chamber erupted in chaos as hegemony defenders returned fire, their energy weapons turning the air into a deadly light show. Elena and her team pushed forward, using the walkway's industrial structures as cover. The alien technicians proved to be formidable opponents. Their movements were too fast, too coordinated, as if they shared a single mind. But they were also vulnerable, their bodies adapted for technical work rather than combat. Williams was pinned down, Chen reported, his voice barely audible over the weapon's fire. She can't reach the array. Elena saw it, The sergeant major trapped behind a control console, alien energy beams keeping her from advancing the final 30 meters to the focusing array. The EMP device was so close to its target, but it might as well have been on another planet. Covering fire. Elena commanded, emptying her magazine at the nearest group of defenders. All units concentrate on a new sound cut through the battle, a harmonic resonance that made Elena's bones ache. The focusing array was beginning its final charge sequence, drawing power from across the installation. Through the chamber's viewports, she could see the spire's peak beginning to glow with the same malevolent green light. "Commander!" William's voice was strained. "I can't get close enough. The energy fields are too strong."